Jess, did you ever get the agenda?
Negative. You know what?
Maybe I'm sending it to the wrong email address.
No, because I just sent you an email from, that compost thing that you emailed me. So I replied to that to see if you got it. So it should go to your town email. So
That was Matt. That's why.
Okay, close enough. Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening. I'd like to open up the April 15th, 2020 Mansfield Select Board meeting to order. And due to the remote location, we do have a flag, but we're going to sit because if we stand, you won't see our pretty faces. So with that, Kevin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
which
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. For the folks at home, I have to read this statement before we start, so just bear with me. It's about 3-4 paragraphs long. Whereas both the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Mass Department of Public Health have advised residents to take extra measures to put distance between themselves and other people to further reduce the risk of being exposed to COVID-19. Governor Baker has issued an order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20. In order to satisfy the Open Meeting Law requirements, tonight's Town of Mansfield Select Board meeting will only be open to public via GoToWebinar for the public hearing for Saki Steakhouse at 6:30. The meeting will be broadcast live on Mansfield Cable Access and available to watch through GoToWebinar. The instructions for joining via GoToWebinar are in the town meeting notice for the Select Board meeting on the town's website at www.mansfieldma.com and by clicking on today's date on the calendar. To ask questions during the public hearing for the transfer of an alcohol license for Saki Steakhouse, you must join the meeting via GoToWebinar and submit the questions through the chat feature or by using the raising your hand icon within the webinar. Following tonight's meeting, the Select Board will have answers provided to all questions and comments from the public related to this evening's meeting via email at selectboard@mansfieldma.com or by phone during town hall hours of operation. When calling, we ask that you please contact the department to which your question is related, or we welcome you to reach out to the Select Board's office at 508-261-7370 to aid in answering your question. It is important to us that you have a platform for your questions and that you receive accurate information in a timely manner. We ask that you allow 24 hours for us to respond. One other thing I want to also ask my colleagues is that since it's remote, it's kind of hard for me to kind of keep track of what's going on as far as who needs to speak and stuff. So I thought starting tonight that I'm going to ask everybody, for instance, if Justin's presenting, let Justin finish, and then I'll poll the Select Board members if they have any questions for Justin and Amy and anybody else. So it'll just be easier. Like if you have something to say, just hang tight and I'll get you when they're done. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the first item is the COVID-19 update.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I'm going to mute my camera, and I'm going to ask that Chief Justin please come on. And what we're going to do is that Carrie will switch out and allow Chief Justin to be able to come onto camera at this time.
Thank you.
So, Chief, if you can turn on your video as soon as Carrie allows you to.
Take it away, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the update from me this week is as of 5 p.m., we have 34 persons currently positive. There's 41 total in quarantine and isolation and 28 recovered. So what that means is there's been 62 total positive in Mansfield. The state also released today that every Wednesday they're going to be putting out on the mass.gov website a town-by-town number of total positive. I looked at it before the meeting, and we're pretty much in line with all the other towns around us. Right now, most of our EMS calls are related to COVID-19. We're not doing much else for calls. And pretty much MVAs and other calls have dropped off for now. I just wanted to go over a few things. First of all, if you do have some symptoms, the first thing you want to do is you want to call your primary care provider, see if you qualify for testing, and they will decide whether they think you need to go to the hospital or not. If you are having any severe symptoms such as shortness of breath or chest pain that's not related to a cough, then you can call 911. Make sure that when you do call 911, you let them know your exact symptoms so they can let us know to wear the proper protective equipment. I just want to take a minute and stress how important masks are in the prevention of the spread of COVID-19. There are some misunderstandings, but the primary reason for wearing the mask is to prevent any virus being spread from the person wearing the mask to others. The mask actually is not to protect the wearer. I've also had a lot of questions lately exactly about how the specific virus works, so I have a really brief explanation before I turn it over to Amy. The coronavirus, first of all, it's named for these little spikes that protrude from the virus, and it gives the appearance of a corona surrounding the virus, so that's where it gets its name. The primary way the virus spreads is from respiratory droplets. This can be from a person coughing or sneezing, or just being close to someone while they're talking. A secondary way the virus spreads is by a person touching a contaminated surface and then touching their mouth, eyes, or nose. Once the virus enters your body, it finds a human cell and it basically hijacks the cell and forces that cell to make more virus, and therefore it spreads. This virus tends to like type 2 lung cells, which is why it has a lot of respiratory symptoms. Once the body's immune system realizes what's happening, it starts to attack the virus, but what that does is causes a lot of inflammation and fluid buildup in the lungs, which causes secondary infections such as pneumonia. It also has specific affinity for the cells that affect your blood pressure. So sometimes it can affect people's blood pressure, especially if they already have issues with it. All this can happen without symptoms right away. So this can be happening and you might not even know it yet. So the current studies are showing that you can spread the virus 48 hours before you even know you have symptoms, which is why it's really important to wear masks, because if you do want to go to Stop and Shop and get your groceries, you might feel fine, but you could be putting out the virus. So that's the real importance of wearing the mask. So wear your masks. The social distancing and hand washing are very important, especially when you're going to be in public areas like supermarkets or gas stations. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Great job. And just before I open up to my colleagues, I think we all feel, the same, that we appreciate everything you and the crew are doing. I know it's a difficult situation, dealing with the other day with the storm. I mean, it's just like going to people's homes and dealing with this. So please send our thank you to the whole crew, and we appreciate everything they're doing.
I will. Thank you.
Okay, I will open up to my colleagues. Neil, any questions for the chief?
No, thank you for the updates, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Neil. I'll go to Mike.
No real question, just, as Jess said, thanks for all you guys are doing, and be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Frank.
Yeah, I have the same to say. Thank you very much, Chief. What a way to start the job. But we appreciate your calm demeanor and patience. Very useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Stephen.
Yeah, I'll echo my colleagues as well. One quick question though. I'm looking at the website, the mass.gov website, and there's a rate column. Do you have any thoughts about that rate column? It seems to be all over the place. Not that we're bad at all, just it looks to be all over the place.
So just to let everybody know what Steve's talking about, the rate column is infections per 100,000 people. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
Number. So ours in Mansfield, I think, is 236. If you look at Easton's is higher, but that's because they had, for instance, a problem in one of their nursing homes where quite a few patients got sick. So things like that can throw it off. And the density of the population, if you look at, for instance, I noticed Everett was at like a 900. Probably, I'm making an assumption that it's because of the densely populated areas.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think one other thing to add to that is some communities might be tested more than Mansfield, and therefore they're going to have higher hits. But just was concerned that residents might see that and say, without the context, kind of jump to conclusions, whether it's positive conclusions or negative conclusions. So I appreciate you explaining that for everyone. Thank you. And thanks for all you're doing, obviously.
All set, Steve? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Chief, thank you. Be safe. And again, send our best to everybody.
Thank you.
All right. So is Amy
Excellent.
coming in next?
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So at this point, Amy, there you are, Amy. Good evening. Welcome.
Just as an update, I just want to reiterate a lot of what the chief was saying about making sure we wear masks, wash our hands, stay 6 feet away from everybody. Those are really the most important things. A lot of what we can do as citizens to protect ourselves are when we go out. I've been working recently with a lot of the restaurants and the supermarkets to make sure that they're doing their best practices. The supermarkets themselves have specific orders through the governor's office as to how many people they can let in. The aisles are supposed to be one way. They've all been following the governor's orders. So some of the things that residents can do when you are going out, especially with takeout or some of the restaurants, people can call ahead or place the order online. Don't go into the store to place the order because then you stand around waiting. It also causes a lot of, you could possibly bring contamination into the store. Utilize curbside delivery when it's available, maybe even request curbside if they don't offer it. If you do have to go inside a store, don't crowd the store, keep your distance, make sure you stay outside if it's crowded inside. If you're going in to place an order and there's a few people, keep everybody else in the car, go in, place your order. And also what the chief was saying, make sure that you wear a cloth face covering at all times when you go into stores, and you can't you can't guarantee that 6 feet social distancing. A lot of times, it's hard when you're in the stores. So, and like the chief said, you're protecting everybody else by wearing that face covering. So it's really important to do that. Also, I know the warm weather will come soon. I know we had a couple days and it's cold, back to being cold, but I just want to reiterate to everybody when you go outside to make sure you keep your 6 feet distance. I talked to the conservation agent today. She said that the conservation areas are definitely stressed because a lot of people are using them. So she said that a lot of the trails haven't been really opened yet because there usually isn't as much traffic as there has been this year. So if you show up at a conservation area and the parking lot is full, that means it's full. Don't go. It's probably hard to keep your 6 feet away from people in crowded conservation areas. So we're just asking, if you see a full parking lot, don't go. The other thing you might hear in the news is we're starting to approach the surge. So just to reiterate, our goal right now is for social distancing is so that we don't overwhelm the medical system that is in place. The governor seems to be doing a great job getting everything up and running, waiting for that surge. We're probably in it, but we have to remember that that was the cases that were exposed, 1 or 2 weeks ago. So whatever we're doing now is going to prevent cases in a week or two. So we need to keep social distancing. And I know it's hard. We all want to get back to what was normal before, but we can't stress enough how important it is to consistently listen to what the local and state officials are saying, because if we start back too soon and the virus starts spreading again, then we're going to have to do it all over. So it's really important that we just pay attention to what, state and local government's saying and adhere to those recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Again, you too, great job. I know you've been tasked with a lot of stuff lately, so thank you for everything you're doing. I'll just ask my colleagues if they have anything briefly, and we can let you go also. I'll start this time with Frank.
Frank, you're muted.
That's the first time I've heard anyone complain about that. I have some questions, and just to reiterate, all the stuff. People are, tired of doing this, but it's well worth adhering to it. So thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Steve.
No, thank you, Amy. Just a quick question. If you're in your own home, if you're on your own property, are you suggesting we should wear masks as well, or just if you can't keep within 6 feet?
If you can't keep within 6 feet, even if you're outside and you're not anticipating being close to people, there's a lot of times when I'll be out in my own neighborhood and I know that my neighborhood isn't very crowded. I won't wear a mask in those situations. But if I'm in a supermarket or if I'm at a crowded area downtown or something, I would always wear a mask.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that.
Thanks. Neil?
Yeah, good point on the masks. One thing I've heard suggested is even if you're outside taking a walk, it doesn't hurt to have the mask with you in case you run into someone or find yourself suddenly closer to someone than you may have hoped for. So just throw that out there. A couple of questions. Are supermarket workers required to wear masks and gloves? Because I was in one in Mansfield last week and I was shocked that the people working the registers were not wearing gloves or masks.
They're not required to wear gloves or masks right now. I know both supermarkets. I know one supermarket from the corporate level requires it. The other does not. I know both of them have surgical masks available to all employees. So that has, that's not a requirement from the state level. It's just the governor has an advisory for people.
Okay, I just was surprised. Like I said, if I was a worker there, I would take advantage of that.
Yeah, one of the things that when I talked to the manager of the store that doesn't require it, I was told that working 6 to 8 hours can cause a lot of discomfort, and then the employees forget, and then they touch the mask and they touch their face, and by doing that, you're more likely to spread the virus. So on that level, there needs to be a lot of training and understanding from the people who are wearing them to be able to not contaminate themselves.
Okay. The other question is, it's a sure sign of spring here. Flint Farm is going to be opening, I believe, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most popular place in town.
Yep.
Are you aware of that? And have they proper safeguards in place for that place? Because
I spoke with the owner. He called me a couple weeks ago about it. And we went over some really important practices. And I think when they advertised online today, it was like, only everybody stay in the car, one person come out. We talked about having the 6 lines for 6 feet for everybody to stay apart.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where I know the owner is doing the best that he can, but it's really going to be up to the people that go to Flint Farms to be able to, stay apart, stay 6 feet apart, wait in your car. If you're waiting in your car or you pull in and you see other people are waiting in your car, wait your turn. I know because the owner is trying to stay on top of things, I feel confident that as things move forward, they will pay attention. But I will definitely check in after the weekend to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to single them out. I mean,
yeah,
popular business. I want to see them succeed.
Right.
They're half a mile from my house, but I just know that people get excited about, especially like opening day. So
right.
People will be careful and follow procedures.
Yeah, and
So
it is one of those things where residents really need to pay attention and take care, take some level of personal responsibility to make sure we're not spreading this virus.
Okay. Great. Thanks,
you.
Michael?
No questions. Just want to say, Amy, thank you for, all the outreach you've been doing. I know this is something that, nobody trains for, in the sense that we're seeing things that nobody has ever seen before. So good job on staying on top of things. Thank you.
Thanks.
Amy, just a question. Is your office getting a lot of phone calls?
We get, I wouldn't say a lot, but every phone call takes a lot of time because it's either educating the person who's called or following up to get more clarification. A lot of the issues that we have, or the things I run into, is that everything's changing on a state level. So if somebody asks me a question one day, and then somebody asked me the same question 2 or 3 days later, I always want to confirm with the state that what I said 2 days ago is the same.
Okay.
So, but I do want to say to everybody, I get a lot of calls. People have questions about what's going on around town, and I always appreciate those calls. Like for the residents to call the health department one, to let me know what they're seeing. Like if somebody goes to Flint Farms and sees that it's jam-packed crowded, definitely call me, because then I'll be able to follow up with the owner to make sure we put things in place that will protect people. In other locations around town, sometimes it's a call to the owner and sometimes it's an explanation to the caller. But I do feel like at this point, any education for anybody is just going to be beneficial.
Great, okay. Thank you. Okay, well, you stay safe, you and your family, and we appreciate all your hard work, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy, very much.
Okay, the next item, we're gonna have to wait 9 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. You want to jump to item 5, the Children's Mental Health Week proclamation?
Sure.
It's consideration to support Children's Mental Health Week by lighting the gazebo on the South Common Green the week of May 3 through May 9, and sign a proclamation for Parent Professional Advocacy League, PPAL. What is the pleasure of the board?
Does the clerk have a?
Yeah, I'm trying to find, is the proclamation in the packet, or is it a separate document?
It is in the packet.
Okay, bear with me a second here. Okay, so I am going to read this on behalf of the Mansfield Select Board. Whereas the citizens of Mansfield value their health and mental health and that of their families, therefore they are proud to support observances such as Children's Mental Health Week. And whereas 17% of children and youth between the ages of 6 and 17 live with a mental health condition, and 50% of all lifetime instances of mental illness begin before age 14, and even some children and youth with the most intense needs and some who are insured may not receive services. And whereas children and youth with mental health needs in elementary, middle, and high school are more likely to be bullied, absent, suspended, expelled, or fail to graduate. And whereas recognizing the early warning signs of mental health needs and obtaining the necessary support, assistance, and treatment gives children and youth better opportunities to lead full and productive lives at home, in schools, and in their communities. And whereas the involvement and partnership of family members in the assessment and treatment of children and youth is essential to positive outcomes. And whereas our nation's future depends on the health and well-being of its families and their children. And whereas Children's Mental Health Week was developed by families of children with emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs to focus on the needs of their children and families. And celebrating this year's Vision for Health and Happiness, it is fitting to increase public awareness among all Mansfield citizens of this important issue. So now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Select Board of the Town of Mansfield that the Select Board, on behalf of all of the citizens of the Town of Mansfield, does hereby proclaim May 3rd through the 9th, 2020 as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. A witness whereof we have here unto set our hands and seal this 15th day of April 2020, signed by the members of the Mansfield Select Board.
Okay.
That is the end of the proclamation.
So we'll need a motion on that item, gentlemen? Someone?
So I make a motion that we accept this proclamation and issue it.
Second.
And we also agreed to let them do the lighting on the gazebo, right?
Yes.
And declare it Mental Health Week,
Right.
or Children's Mental Health Week.
So if that all could be in the motion, that when Carrie types it, that would be fine.
I have the motion here. Just give me a second. I make a motion to support Children's Mental Health Awareness Week by lighting the gazebo on South Common Green the week of May 3rd through the 9th, and to sign the proclamation.
Okay, we have a second? Someone?
I had already seconded.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, requires a roll call vote. Neil,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and Jess, yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we still have about 5 minutes. Was there how many questions and comments were there from the residents?
There was only one, Mr. Chair.
Do we have time to do that before the hearing?
Sure.
All right, can you read that?
I believe that was number 8, item number 8 on the agenda.
Correct.
Sure. This was from, I combined all my documents into one. So this was received today at 10:29 a.m. And this is from Mr. Alan Breyer, 187 Copeland Drive. Want to know, what is the status of the master plan update? Has the town been in contact with JM Goldson LLC and all regards any meetings prior to annual town meeting? And is the master plan an article on the annual town meeting warrant? This set obviously could spur others, but I'll go with what I can. Thank you. So just as an update to that, I just wanted to be able to report back to Mr. Breyer, but also to all of you, that yes, there will be a public hearing before the planning board. And after talking with the consultant and with John Burke, that's going to be tentative for June 17th at 7 p.m. As Sean would like to have the committee present in front of the planning board and also for the opportunity for the general public to participate. That plan is on the website, and that has been updated on the town's website. You can see on the front page over to the right-hand side is the first item under quick links that says 2019 master plan update, or you could go directly to planning and zoning section of our website, which also points you to the same place. And it also provides the information that public comment on the 3 portions of the master plan that are updated on the website, that's available for public comment to the specific email address that's listed there. And you just click on it and it will redirect you automatically to that email address. And you can provide your public comment through May 31st, 2020. And that will give plenty of time to be able to make sure that all of the information is received by the consultant and consolidated for consideration by the planning board. And then also the fact that a message will be going out to the steering committee with an update in the near future. I wanted to communicate that on behalf of Mr. Burke this afternoon. And to the question of, is the master plan an article on the annual town meeting? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is that gets approved by state statute by the planning board. However, that it is certainly going to be for a brief update of the actual master plan at town meeting. There'll be a small update there, but it does not be a prerequisite that the annual town meeting has to approve that.
Okay, fantastic. We have 2 minutes. Let's see, anything else we can touch upon briefly?
Mr. Chair, maybe consideration for item 9 for the consent agenda?
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Anyone?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, requires a roll
Sorry,
call
I was
vote.
on mute. I made the motion, but I was muted.
Okay. So Neil make a motion and say Frank will second it?
All right, so I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Roll call, Neil,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jess, yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Probably not going to have time to, let's see.
Perhaps item 10 for the payroll warrants?
I can bang that out.
I have to roll call vote all 6 of them. It's going to take, we're going to be there in like 30 seconds. It's 6:30, so we can go back to the, Neil, can you read the
Very
public? The next item is a public hearing. If Neil can read the public hearing notice?
I Oh, is that a separate document? It's more than just.
Neil, I just emailed it to you, so you'll have it, or it is, I think, page 3 of the packet.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Steve, you okay?
Yes, just one of yours fine.
Okay, so you need me to read this notice of public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. In accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 12, as amended, the Mansfield Select Board will hold a public meeting in Room 3AB, Town Hall, 6 Park Road, Mansfield, Mass. on Wednesday, April 15, 2020, at 6:30 p.m. on the application of D.W. Wang 688 Inc. To transfer a license for an all-alcohol beverages on-premises license from Saki Steakhouse Inc. doing business as Saki Steakhouse, 280 School Street, to D.W. Wang 688 Inc. doing business as Saki Steakhouse. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Select Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or a requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the Town of Mansfield's website at mansfieldma.com.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second to open the hearing?
Second.
Okay, requires a roll call vote. Neil?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Jess, yes. Okay, I declare the hearing open. I just want to make a comment before we start. There were 4 folks from the Saki group that were invited. I'm just going to read their names. The first one is Christopher E. Coleman, Esquire. He's an attorney. And if I mispronounce these other folks' names, my apologies. I'll do the best I can. Jin Hua Chen and Jing Dong Wang, and Andrea Kaur, who is Attorney Coleman's paralegal. So with that being said, can Attorney Coleman hear us?
Yes, good evening, gentlemen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I was waiting a half hour just to find that out. I would have hated to get through the half hour and then all of a sudden hear nothing on the other end of the line.
This works pretty good.
No, that's excellent. Actually, Alan, also known as Jin Chen, should be on the line with me. He is the proposed manager.
Okay.
So there may be a couple of questions you may have. I think I can answer most of them. We may have to defer to him on one or two. But I think you're familiar with the location of the Saki Steakhouse. Not to take too much time in the application with the, with some of the facts over it, but with the, it's 4,800 square feet roughly. It's got 128 seats. Its occupancy is 140. It's got Chinese and Japanese cuisine. Specialty is in the hibachi style cooking. There's no proposed change in the floor plan, no proposed change in the hours. With regard to the delivery of the food and people coming in there, we heard Amy's recommendations with regards to that. Those will be adhered to going forward. Like I said, the proposed manager is Alan Chen, or Jinhua Chen. He's got excellent restaurant experience. In fact, he used to work at Saki Steakhouse from 2010 to 2012. He was a waiter and a liquor server. From 2013 to current, he is was the manager of Chen Sushi Hibachi in New Hampshire. And from 2016 forward, he's been the shareholder manager of A&N Sushi Hibachi. Very similar operations to what is at Saki Steakhouse. He is TIPS trained as a U.S. citizen. He's going to be down there 40 hours plus. And we've talked about alcohol training with him. The people that are currently working there, well, not currently, but well, I guess, yeah, they're still there with regard to the takeout. They all have alcohol training there, but we don't know how many people will still be there when it opens fully. There may be some new people that are there. He's going to largely try to retain the existing staff, but whoever comes in that's new will receive the alcohol training on site. I think that could be largely it. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, I have some, but I'll hold it till the end. I'll ask my colleagues first. Let me start with Steve this time.
Sure, just a few quick questions. And thanks, Christopher, for bringing this to us and bringing Alan to the table as well. Yes, I looked at your background, your resume, being a waiter there and now being much more involved is an interesting thing. The current manager, or the more recent manager, how long has that person been in place? Do you have an idea?
I think it's been at least 5 years. The lease was there. I
Right.
don't know about the change in manager, but the lease was a 5 year and it's just about to expire. We're executing a new one now.
Certainly, and this is you bought the business basically is what it comes down to it.
Yes, well, with the lease being up, there's not that much to sell there. I think that the parties know each other or have had past dealings, and it's more or less just a takeover, a transfer, rather than than a purchase, really.
Got it. And so, Alan, I noticed your residence is in Lee, New Hampshire. Is that going to be your residence for a long time, or do you think you're going to come down to Mansfield working 40+ hours a week here?
Yeah, just for the weekends. It's weekend time. Yeah, when I take off, yeah, I drive back to the New Hampshire.
And
I
do you
asked
anticipate having? Go ahead.
I asked him that question this morning. He says it's an hour drive, and he's prepared to continue doing it.
Yeah, not too
And
far.
you feel-
Just 2 hours.
Okay. And if something erupts on the weekend, you would be able to come down right away and take care of it?
Yep.
Okay. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
My fire alarm is going off, gentlemen. I'm going to put it on mute. Mike, take over.
Okay, next question, Neil?
No real questions. Just, yeah, I guess I kind of shared that same concern about the application says we've got 2 other businesses, both in New Hampshire. So I'm wondering how you're going to manage all that at the same time.
Yeah, he's actually won't be the manager of those other 2.
Oh, okay. So only the liquor manager here in Mansfield.
That's correct.
Okay.
His wife. He told me his wife actually is operating one of those restaurants.
Yes, yes.
So they're going to continue to do it, but he won't be the manager there once this gets approved. Assuming it does, he'll be moving down here and handling operations down here.
All right. And all right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Frank, any questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, gentlemen, my wife burnt my son's fish. All the smoke, all the alarms are going off. That's off.
That's the dinner bell in my house.
Did everybody, all the board members ask questions?
I didn't get around to myself, but I have no questions as long as everything's been gone through the everybody signed off.
I have a question for the owner and the attorney.
Please.
Years ago, there were issues at Saki with the previous management as far as those squirt bottles that are, at the hibachi stations. And I just want to make sure that they're not being used for minors who are with their parents or whatever at those tables.
If you want, but that would be, I don't think we'd have any problem operating with that condition. Certainly, it shouldn't be done no matter what. Are you saying that we shouldn't have the sake bottles at all? Or do you think we just need to ID everybody at the table and tell the cook that's there what the situation is? And,
I think, this goes back years ago. When I think I'm looking around at my colleagues, I think the only one on at the time where there were alleged incidents that the cook, who was the hibachi person, was spraying alcohol into the mouth of people with those bottles. Some might have been adults, some might not have been. All I'm saying is that if that practice continues, they have to be careful that that's only in adult. I'm not telling you how to run your business.
Sure.
What I'm saying is anybody that consumes alcohol has to be old enough.
I know. I've seen that a lot. I've been to plenty of hibachi restaurants, and they do. They just kind of come out. They don't ID anybody. I mean, the waitress that's serving the alcohol does the IDing, but it just seems like somebody comes into the pit and anybody who wants it, just kind of sprays around. I agree. They'll have to find some way to handle that.
So that's going to be on the owner because,
Yep.
If there's a problem, we say this all the time, we take alcohol okay? And I guess we're telling you now, so
Right, right.
if it happens, there could be some ramifications. So I just want you to know up front that that's happened in the past. I
Yep.
wish you well. I hope you kill it over there. I just letting you know up front that they have to be careful.
Alan, you understand that, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I got you. Thank you.
Steve?
Mr. Chair, I agree with that. I've been there in the past year and have seen, not my own kids, but others, squirting the bottle from the grill there. I didn't know it was sake and squirted at me. But
It could be ginger ale.
yeah,
I don't know.
agreed.
I got it.
I'm not accusing or anything. I'm just saying if someone's consuming alcohol on your premises, they have to be old enough.
Yes,
However, that's all. Okay?
Okay.
absolutely.
Now, with that being said, I'm going to open it up to is there anybody from the public that has any questions for the Saki attorney or owner? All right. With that said, I don't hear anything. So,
They would not be able to speak right now, Jess. They need to raise their hand and let me know that they have a question.
and has anybody raised their hand with any questions about this Saki transaction?
I don't see that.
Okay.
Or if they want to send in a chat. Or if you're comfortable, I could unmute everybody right now and just make it a little bit easier and then mute them again when it's over.
I mean, if they were sitting in the room, they'd be unmuted anyway. So
Okay.
with that being said, yeah, and I'll say real quick. So let me know when that's done.
Sure. So I believe that I've given everybody permission to speak, but they would be self-muted. So if you unmute yourself, you would then be able to ask a question.
So I'm just going to ask anybody who is an attendee, they're calling that?
Yes.
Anybody that's an attendee to this meeting who has any questions on the Saki transfer, please speak now. So I don't hear anyone, Carrie, right?
I do not, and I do not see any
Okay.
questions.
All right. So you can go back to muting them.
Jess, you have to unmute yourself.
I think when I muted everyone, it does the whole group. So Jess, if you click on the microphone, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Apparently not.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second? I did not hear. Steve seconded it? Steve, I can't hear you speak. Are you muted?
Frank, you're muted too.
Michael, can you speak? All right. Carrie, we have a lot of muted select board members.
I just tried to unmute everybody, so I believe everybody is self-muted at this point.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you, Mike.
Can you hear me now?
Steve, Frank? Frank, say something. Can't hear.
Frank,
If Frank hits the microphone button, maybe he can.
I'm all set now. Thank you.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a motion to close the public hearing, and I think Steve is seconding it. correct?
Yes, second.
Okay, we're gonna take a roll call vote. Steve? This is to close
Yes.
the hearing. Frank?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Jess? 5-0. Motion carries 5-0 to close the hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion to approve the transfer of an all alcohol license from Saki Steakhouse Inc. to DW Wang 688 Inc., doing business as Saki Steakhouse, located at 280 School Street, and a common victualler license.
Second. Is there a second? We have a motion, and I think Mike beat you to it, Steve. Okay, roll call
problem.
vote. I'll let you vote first, Steve.
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Jess, yes. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, gentlemen at Saki. Counselor, if you need anything, let us know. I would suggest at some point, once things kind of, this whole COVID pandemic that we're going through, that the owner might want to reach out to the police chief, introduce himself, and they can build a relationship, and I'm sure you guys will kill it there, and best of luck.
They're probably muted, so.
Okay. All right. So we are good with that item. We're going to go to the next item, which is discussion and consideration to name the park on Old Colony Road. Kevin. For the folks at home, we're just waiting for the TM's computer to go back into unmuted mode.
There you go.
Thank you, Carrie.
Kevin, you got it.
Can you hear me?
You're all
Yep.
set.
I'm sorry. Little
Go ahead.
technical difficulty, folks. I apologize about that.
Go ahead.
This is item number 4 on the agenda item as it relates to the naming of this area on Old Colony. And as you recall from a couple of meetings ago, we had a discussion as it relates to using the word or the terminology park. If we use the terminology of the word park under Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution, if we consider that use of a name of calling something blank park, it is considered parkland in perpetuity unless you end up getting a vote of 2/3 of the Massachusetts General Court, meaning the House and the Senate. That would technically, just by us naming something a park, designates it for that special purpose. And no other board or myself or anything to that nature could ever not make it a park again. So I just wanted to refresh your memory of that discussion from a couple of meetings ago as it related to when we said we would come back before the board at some point in the future for consideration. I just wanted to make sure that I refreshed your memories on that, and that still remains a real and vital issue for us. So I ask that you keep that in consideration as the 2 names that have been forwarded by the Downtown Committee for your review, which is found on packet page number 28 out of page 47. So it's 28 out of 47. And it has the 2 names that were recommended by the Downtown Committee. So I guess this is going to be discussion and consideration of 2 things. 1, to name this after a person or persons, plural, and 2, what to call it. Park versus something else, which could be square, station,
Plaza.
plaza, something to that effect. So there are different opportunities for you for consideration. But what was forwarded specifically by the Downtown Committee in and of itself, again on page number 28 of your packet, which was particularly for 2 people. And I'd like to also thank Chris George for providing the summary for you, which you can see on page 28 of the 2 names. And that was for Harry Chase Jr. And then also of Mr. Barnes, Toki Barnes. So I'm not sure, Neil, if you wanted to be able to reference page 28 and take it a little bit further than that and for the discussion with the board tonight.
Sure. So hopefully you all had an opportunity to review the write-ups. As Kevin mentioned, the downtown committee gave this some thought, eliminated some other options, and really just narrowed it down to these two choices of Harry Chase Jr., who was a columnist for the Mansfield News for many years, a local historian, very involved with the Boy Scouts and outdoor, one of the founding members of the NRT, I believe, or if not, very heavily involved with that group. And also wrote a lot about, in his writings in the Mansfield News, about the Old Colony Way, the railroad history here in Mansfield. So that was kind of one of the reasons why the committee felt he made good sense as a strong candidate to have this space named after him. And then the second candidate was Thomas Toki Barnes, who is a Mansfield native and an artist who he's had his work displayed at the Marini Gallery here in Mansfield. He overcame some disabilities in his life, was, I guess, kind of known to be a very interesting character around town. That's kind of the high level summary of the two candidates.
Okay. So Kevin, I probably should open it up to my colleagues for their thoughts.
Yes.
All right. Let's start this time with Mike.
I think this is kind of a small thing to name for Harry. If we went in that direction, I would think that in the future something much bigger should be named for Harry for all the work that he's done. But I think I like the word place rather than plaza or park. Whether the nickname is Harry's Place, but Harry, Chase Jr. I like the word place.
Neil, did you have any personal thoughts, or are you good with what you said?
I mean, if it comes down to a vote, I agree. I like the name Place because it's not too grandiose. It's because it is a small area, and if I had to choose between the two, I would choose Harry Chase,
Okay.
just primarily for that tie to the railroad.
Steve?
Yeah, I took a look at this, and I believe Harry Chase, I think I agree with Mike, I believe Harry Chase needs a lot more than just a small place to be named after him. I think Harry was, a lot of us are enjoying trails right now, sectioned off areas of town that are preserved now because of Harry's work. A lot of us enjoy the work he's done and the books he's written and the columns he's made. So, this area is so small that Harry deserves something bigger for all he's done for the town. I do like the idea of naming it after Mr. Barnes for a couple of reasons. He lived just a couple blocks away. And when I look at this space, or this place, we'll call it, because I agree with the name, place makes a lot of sense. It could be artist-based in some way. You could have some outdoor art there. You could have some other types of things there to kind of give it a little more character. But I do agree we have to name something after Harry somewhere. And it has to be pretty significant for all that he's done for the town. Thanks.
Frank?
Okay, let me get this straight. People are in favor of Chase Place. I think that has a nice ring to it. The way things often go is that people will be watching this and they'll say, well, when did this happen? When did people start talking about this? I didn't get any input. And I know, if I made through the chair, that Neil had mentioned a while back about how they were soliciting public input. So, Neil, there weren't like three people in a back room who, were nominating all of their distant relatives. It was more of a process. Am I right?
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, can you
Say it
just a little bit about how you solicited input to get to these and who actually made the decision, just for the
Yeah,
people.
it was the Downtown Advisory Committee pretty much brainstormed. The other name that was in contention for a while was the Back Bay place, or whatever it was going to be. I'm trying to remember, Kevin, if you recall what some of the other possibilities were. I can't frankly remember.
I'm just
But,
going to pull up the minutes from the meeting that I had right here, just to be able to see that, Neil. I know that there was the elimination of Back Bay.
Right.
And that was just, from the section of the downtown and the neighborhood that it butts at. And a lot of that area was a area for that area named a town, and a lot of the waterway was exposed at one time. Back Bay Brook and the such. So that was one that was eliminated that I see here. I think it was just those three, Neil, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I can't remember any others. And I would just like to say, I hear what you're saying about, maybe Harry Chase might deserve something bigger, but I don't know what other kind of naming opportunities we have. So if we don't name it that, he may never have something named after him. So just keep that in mind.
Frank, are you good?
Yes, I am. I think if you recall in the past that some of us were interested in the possibility of that area becoming a larger park once we see how the parking works out with the new parking plan and, with changes in the way people get around. So we always kept that option open. So it may become a larger park. I understand the fact that it's maybe tokenish. I don't know where else we do it. Maybe for a small place, we wouldn't name it at all or name it after a place. But, the committee put work into this. I'm not going to say we should go back and call it Back Bay Place, because that kind of would be another option, but that's been put aside. So I guess I'd be in favor of Harry Chase.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make one more comment?
You sure?
I've been around for a long time, and I actually am familiar with Toki. One of the things that when I think of the downtown area, we're talking about trying to make cultural districts, and I think Toki does do that. And like I said at the beginning, there's got to be a good amount of acreage somewhere in this town where we can name it after Harry. I think that goes with his legacy more so than a small little park behind, the downtown area. And I'm all in favor for naming something for Harry for all the work he did, and I think he deserves something much bigger than this.
I got an idea. So I'm sorry. You're swaying me, Mike, just so you know. It occurs to me the Plymouth Street Fields. I mean, that's not the most creative name. And it's a big open space. There's trails there. Maybe that might be a fitting place for Harry Chase.
I would think we need something more broad than just a guess at something like the Plymouth Street Fields or something like. Harry wasn't associated with soccer, obviously, but and get input from. If you read the obituary on the page here from Donna, he was given the 2010 the initial Manfield Historical Commission Award. There are a lot of people that should have input into what we name after Harry, not just the five of us.
Yeah, I think this becomes, not to make something more difficult than it needs to be, but I agree with Neil when he said earlier that if, and Mike, that, maybe he deserves a bigger thing, but, when's that going to come? 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Will whoever's on the board then even remember? You know what I mean? So, it gets to be another difficult situation. And plus, the downtown committee spent time on this, so, it's kind of another one of those, okay, what do we do here, And I think the place thing, it sounds to me like everyone's in favor of that. What do we name it? Something place. So, Frank.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, your comments triggered something. I think the issue here is that it was with the downtown committee. I have no problem with that, but they weren't considering, hey, we can name the Plymouth Street Fields or whatever other area outside of the downtown after Harry Chase. But, who would have thought that sitting on that committee? So this has opened things up. I always like the idea of us looking globally, over, what these types of decisions. We didn't do it this time. That's too bad. I didn't think of that. I don't know if anyone else thought of that. But I think that Mr. Chase he's such a well-known figure in town that, and I hear what you're saying about future boards might not know whatever. I think that we can get a lot of interest pretty quickly in people having input and doing something for that. So I guess Mr. Schoenfeld and Mr. Trowbridge have swayed me also. It might be appropriate for the town. Artwork there would be nice, etc. Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
or actually anybody else on the board, does the Maple Street Conservation Area have a name?
I don't believe so, Mike.
Could we in fact actually reach out to the Conservation Commission, the Open Space Committee, and the NRT and ask them, is Mansfield in possession of any large tracts such as Maple Street that we could do? I mean, this doesn't have to take forever. I mean, we should be able to get an answer by our next meeting. And
yeah, and
officially name something.
And I think, to be fair to Neil, and Neil asked me to, get this back on track, because I know, it's again, another important issue that we have to get business done. So, if we can button this up by the next meeting, and I think Neil and all the folks at the downtown committee can feel good that they, made a nice contribution. We could get those questions answered. We could put this on the agenda and vote in 2 weeks, and that's pretty good, I think, getting it wrapped up. Is everybody good with that? Neil?
I'm fine with them.
I'm fine.
Steve?
So do some more research on what we would name after Harry to determine what we name this place. Yeah. One thing to note, there's an easy due date to think about. Harry would have been 100 December 4th next year. So we have to get something in place before his 100th birthday would have been,
Nice.
December 4th
Okay.
next year.
Frank, you good with this?
Sounds good to me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so Kevin, can we reach out to conservation and see what the deal is?
We sure will.
And if anybody if somebody has some ideas the next couple of days, whatever, just put them on the table. We'll see what it is.
Please get them to Carrie. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
My apologies, Neil. I know you're trying to button this down. I didn't mean to derail it.
No apology necessary.
I think it'll work out for the best for
Good
everything. If this goes the way I think Mike's thinking, it might be good for everybody.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay. All right, so there's no votes needed for that issue, so let's move on, okay, gentlemen? So we're going to be on agenda item 6, which is the discussion and consideration of board and committee liaisons for select board members. So let me just start that off a minute, and then we'll go from there. So I know that there's been discussions about, from several members, about having a liaison for several boards and committees. Not that the liaison necessarily needs to go to all their meetings, or, the meeting chairs, the committee and board chairs are in charge of their committees. It's their committee, but this, especially with what's going on now and then in the future, that we have like a liaison between them and the board, so we know what's going on, any things that they may need, any issues that they're having that, they could run up the chain of command quicker and get things done. So what I did is I kind of, in my mind, I made a list of it actually worked out. And if I've missed any important, every committee is important, but any committee that we really think that we need a liaison to, let's talk about it tonight. But what I did is I went through and made a list of different boards and committees, and I came up with 10 of them. And in those, and then coincidentally, there's 5 of us, so I'm like, okay, let me assign each member to 2 of these, and they can act as that liaison to that particular board or committee. So let me just read off what I kind of drafted, and then we can go from there. So I came up with these committees: the school committee, finance committee, planning board, the airport, board of health, zoning board of appeals, board of assessors, recreation, open space, and cable access. So those are, I mean, again, like I said, all the committees that we have are important, but I thought these would be at least a good start for us. So what I did is I penciled it. I looked at, you know, people's background. I kind of wanted to keep it where we weren't like, if I was on the school committee, I wouldn't put a select person that was on the school committee. I kind of try to mix it up. So this is kind of what I drafted. I'm just going to read it off. Okay. So for the school committee, I put Steve. For the finance committee, I put Mike. For the planning board, I put Neil. For the airport, I put Frank. For the board of health, I put myself. For the zoning board of appeals, I put Frank. For the board of assessors, I put Steve. For recreation, Mike. Open space, Neil, and cable access, Jess. So I like I said, I try to put folks that weren't on those particular boards, so it'd be kind of, you know, a different set of ears, and that's what I have. I don't know. Anybody have any comments? I'll start with Mike.
I didn't get a chance to write all those down. You were going pretty fast, but the two that I'm on, I appreciate only because there's
You speak up.
a limited number of boards that I really, just because of my work that I do, that I probably should not be their liaison.
Right.
So thank you.
Neil.
Did you, I see the Keep Mansfield Beautiful Committee listed, but did you assign anyone to that committee?
I didn't know, because I didn't put that in this round of 10 committees.
Right. All right. So that aside, I guess my question is, what's the can't think of the word. What's the expectation for what the liaisons would be responsible for doing?
Well, I can say what I don't really anticipate them doing. I don't think these people need to attend all their meetings. There can be a relationship between this person and the chair of the committees, where there could be a mechanism for the chair of committee X to reach out to the liaison and say, look, I think we need to talk to the board about X, Y, and Z. And now that a select person has that in their head, and they can run it up to the chain quickly and more efficiently, so we can act on their needs. Okay. I mean, in some of these committees, it might be very small amount of things. Some of these committees, it might be busier. So it's just a start, because I know some of the select board members were, I don't want to use the word chirping, but, talking about doing this. So I thought that it's a good start. So I just took a stab at it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea. And I think as one of the responsibilities would be of each person to invite their assigned committees to present to the entire board at least once a year. I know they're kind of supposed to do that already, but it hasn't been happening on a regular basis. So I would still like to see that happen across the board.
And that's fine. And then some of the other committees where we're already on, I'm on the audit committee, right? So this doesn't need to be capital improvements. So those kinds of committees, we don't really need to do this because we're already there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, it's just a stab at it, putting it out there. Steve, you raised your hand?
Yeah, just give them a little explanation. About a month ago when I chirped about this, and I guess I did chirp, the intent was just to help. I mean, our jobs are to empower these boards and committees to succeed. And so we're not there to do their work. We're just there to visit them and say, hey, I'm going to call up the chair. I'm going to say, hey, is there anything else we can do to help you? Any policy you want us to go through? It's really just trying to be, strong assistants to our boards and committees. And I'm glad you picked just the 10. That's a good start and probably a good end too. because all the other committees, I saw IDC in the list. No, that's Kevin's committee. That's not ours. You know, some of these other ones, yes, they don't need a liaison once a year. But the whole idea is really just to help and say, what can we do to make your lives better, to help you become more effective in the town, and to really, you know, implement policy that we set forth. So,
And that could also be the lead into having them come into a select board meeting where that liaison could speak with them and understand what's going on, you know, and help present their case or whatever their issues are.
yeah, because oftentimes when we have committees and boards come in, they come in, the chair, the vice chair, maybe someone else, and they just sit and say, okay, what do you want? Well, with these liaisons, we can talk ahead of time and say, I know the board's been talking about this, the select board's been talking about this. Can you address that? Or, you know, is there something, kind of prep them ahead of time so that it becomes a very good face-to-face. And no, I think this is a strong idea, which is probably why I brought it up. But, you know, right now we have a tough time. So there are committees and boards that aren't meeting. But, you know, they might need some help, and we should be reaching out.
Okay. Frank, did you have a question? Are you good?
No, as usual, I have a statement. I have a kind of a concurring opinion. I've never been a big fan of the liaison. We have a professional staff. We have our meetings. But one thing we've been missing with COVID-19 is that, you know, you're in town hall, I may be at a master plan steering committee meeting, or you may be at an audit committee, and you run into people. You run into the planning board. So there's that informal conversation where ideas are germinated there. And we're totally lacking that now. So I think it's a very good idea to have that communication for the near term. And I think the idea could, you know, possibly go on long term if we work out. If it doesn't become like an individual member, I don't want to use the word dominating, but like, yeah, I guess I do want to use the word dominating. There's always that possibility. I think towns that typically do this are like the 3-member boards or the ones that don't have town managers, etc. I think it's a good idea now, so I'm going to be quiet and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. So it seems like my colleagues are pretty much in agreement with this, and we can revisit this. I mean, a couple months down the road, we'll see how it goes. I mean, we might take committees away. I mean, and this will lead into getting them in to see us too. So if, you know, there's a more Michael?
You know, I look at this also as, instead of waiting for that once a year for them to come in, you have a good conduit going from the board actually, you know, to the select board as well. And that means if I'm the liaison and I know something major is going on, you know, I can report back to the rest of the select board. I think it's important that whoever the liaison is for each one, if they see things that are happening that they think are important, I think it's, you know, incumbent upon them to let the rest of us know as well.
Yep. Good. Okay. So do we want to memorialize this with a motion just so we have something in place, and then if we need to revisit it, we'll revisit it?
I'm thinking of a crazy motion that'll work, but move that we for the 10 boards and committees defined by the chair, that we establish liaisons as listed by the chair to help our fellow boards and committee members out.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Requires a roll call vote. Neil?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And Frank?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay. We probably maybe should we put out a memo to these 10 boards, just kind of summarizing this conversation?
I think that would be very helpful, and I'll ask Carrie to draft that in addition to the language that you previously voted on in the conservation area.
Okay, can you, before it gets sent out, can we take a look at it and then we'll let it rip after that?
Carrie, you can send that directly to the board.
How's that, gentlemen? Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. Okay, the next item is item 7, budget update for 20 and 21.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And at this point, we have Mr. Lacasse with us this evening. So I believe that Carrie is now going to switch me out and shut my camera off. and then she's going to be placing Mr. Lacasse on. So Carrie, at this point, I'm going to sign myself out, and you can put Barry on. And Carrie, we can't hear your voice anymore, so are you still with us?
I am.
Okay. I'll take myself off camera. And Barry, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you, we just can't see you yet.
I'm trying to get the video, but it says we're at our max, so maybe it hasn't caught up yet.
Yep, just a moment.
You're in
There
here.
it
I
is.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just to provide you with a budget update for FY20, we've sent out a memo to all the department heads asking them to track their COVID-19 related expenses, which includes equipment and labor. I shared with your honorable body yesterday the latest update on that, and the equipment cost at that point was $59,000. The latest number as of today is about $64,000, and the labor costs are at about $9,000. So it's changing by the day, mainly because we're getting other departments to give us their new update. So I haven't heard from all the departments yet, but those are the latest figures right now. On the snow budget, let's hope that is closed. We've out the door about $297,000, which leaves roughly about $92,000 available. Local receipts for FY20, which, as you know, we've been tracking almost on a daily basis, just because the shutdown of the economy. Last Thursday, I sent you a supplemental budget update, which included the collections of local receipts. We're about 75% through the fiscal year. Overall, all the local receipts are about 79% collected. Some notable changes since that update that I sent you is that the penalties and interests are up slightly to 78% collected, and ambulance fees are up to 71% collected. All the other local receipts remain about the same. On the wastewater revenue, which is also important, we're about 78% collected for the user fees. For the water, we're about 79% collected for the user fees. So that's my update for the FY20 budget. And then for the FY21 budget, I had provided your board with an update on April 9th, and I have nothing new to add to that. Obviously, we are keeping a close eye on what our local receipts do in FY20, so that if we need to adjust for FY21, we can do that. But as of now, nothing has changed for the FY21 proposed budget. And that concludes my report.
Okay, so before you go, I'm just going to poll the board, see if they have any questions. Look around. This is great. Look at everybody's face. I can decide. Neil.
Pick me. Just one quick question, Barry. Hope you're doing
Sure.
well. Are there any expenses that are lower as a result of this crisis? You know, I'm just trying to think of positive things.
Off the top of my head, Neil, I would say probably not. Payroll remains the same, as you probably know. There might be some smaller amounts in overtime for people that were maybe budgeted to spend time at attending board meetings or things like that, that obviously we haven't needed. So there might be some savings there. But and probably some supply accounts are probably not being spent as often since town hall is closed.
Maybe some energy savings, I would hope, I would think. But, you know, like the school buildings and things like that. I know that's the school budget, but.
Right.
All right, that's all I had. But thank you for the update.
Sure.
Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't really have any questions, Barry, at this time. I know it's still a fluid situation. We're not sure how 2020 is going to end up. 2021 will have some impact, but we're really not at a position now to really make those determinations. I did see something through my job at Standard & Poor's on April 1st released a report saying that they were putting a negative outlook on all of the areas that they rate. That includes like colleges and universities, hospitals, local governments. And they looked at the local government sector and they pointed out that, you know, most local governments have built up their reserves over the last several years because of the strong economy. And they said, although it'll be difficult, they feel that the majority of local governments have done this and will be able to work their way through this situation. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't really know what the details are now, but we have a lot of work ahead of us, but there's hope. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Steve, you settled in there?
Yeah, I just had to plug my iPad in, otherwise I'd lose y'all. Couple of quick questions, Barry. Yeah, it's great that we have reserves now, and it's good that other municipalities have them as well. Clearly, that's not the first thing we're going to try and target going forward, but my question more is along the lines of when will we see some early indications of there being some effect of the basically the month of shutdown in the next month or so after. In other words, clearly, you know, real estate taxes are as they are. They'll be delayed because we can now pay them on July 1st instead of May 1st, but they're still going to come. But there are other revenue sources, the permitting sources, you know, getting these new buildings into production to add to the tax base, and restaurant receipts. So, Barry, when do you think we'll start seeing some indications that our revenues may indeed be hampered by the last month and the next few?
Well, I think we're already seeing that. With some of our, in my report that I had provided to you, I mentioned some of the receipts that watch list. Obviously, the hotel and meals tax numbers would seem to be in jeopardy, but they're actually tracking at about 75% collected. So, but building permit fees, like you mentioned, yes, we're going to see a slowdown in those, and probably we won't hit our target by June 30th for some of those. But when we talk about local receipts, overall, it's the sum total of all the local receipts that help us get through FY20. For FY21,
right,
we might have to adjust our local receipt projections for some of the things like meals and hotel taxes, building permits, and maybe even new growth. So there might be some of those adjustments going forward for FY21. I expect by the end of May, both the town manager and I will have a pretty good idea of what we need to do to adjust those numbers.
And the hotel and restaurant receipts, is that something that's about a month in arrears? Like, we won't see the effect until when, do you think? Like,
Yeah, well,
April's
again,
number,
probably May is when we'll see that.
May. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I appreciate it. Thanks, Barry.
You're welcome.
Michael?
I really don't have any questions. I mean, I think we know we got some issues coming down the road, but we don't know exactly the extent of those issues at this point. And I'm glad you guys are kind of buckling down on, you know, some of our expenditures, and we know we got some work ahead of us.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, by putting the spending freeze in, obviously, you know, we have salaries and stuff we have to pay, but all the other stuff, if we don't need to buy it, we're not buying it. And if it can wait, it's going to wait. So that will help out. So, you know, keeping our fingers crossed that we get through it. And we, you know, so far the costs have been fairly not bad, considering we're $100 million plus town. So thank you and Kevin for all, you know, I know you're looking for every nickel you can, so I appreciate it. So,
Thank you.
You know, I want you also to stay safe and your family, and you're also fairly new here, so you, Justin, all came in, and then this all started. So hopefully we get back to normal soon, and you know, things go smoothly.
Thank you, Jess.
You're welcome, sir. Okay. We all set for this line item, gentlemen? Believe so. Okay, so why don't we switch back Kevin in and then we can continue.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
And on to your next item, I believe it would be, the next item would be, was it number 10?
We have to vote on the warrants. We did the
Yes, no, I
consent
believe-
agenda, but we have to do the warrants, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
So,
I'll make the warrant motions.
please.
Okay, make a motion to approve town payroll, town Medicaid payroll 20041 PT in the amount of $334,509.14.
Is there a second? Thanks, Steve.
Second.
Call for a vote. Neil?
Yes.
Mike? Mike, you're muted.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
I abstain. 401.
Okay, make a motion to approve town deductions vendor payroll 20041 TV in the amount of $105,279.26.
We have
Second.
Steve seconding. Call for a roll call. Neil?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve town payroll, town Medicaid payroll 20042 PT in the amount of $332,387.31.
Steve seconds. Roll call. Neil?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Motion carries. Oh, wait a minute. That's the town pay. I'll abstain. 401.
Okay. Motion to approve town deductions vendor payroll 20042 TV in the amount of $104,578.25.
We have a second by Steve. Roll call vote. Neil?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Motion carried. Yes for Jess. 5-0.
Okay, motion to approve school payroll, school Medicaid payroll 20042 PS in the amount of $1,648,615.97.
We have a second by Steve. Call for a roll call vote. Neil?
Yes.
Mike? I lost my.
Abstain.
Frank?
Abstain.
Steve? Yes. And Jess, yes. 302. Frank and Mike abstain.
All right, last motion to approve school deductions vendor payroll 20042 SV in the amount of $516,446.95.
We have a second by Steve. Roll call vote. Neil?
Yes.
Mike? Frank?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jess, yes. Motion carries 5-0. Neil?
That's the last motion.
Okay, is there any correspondence?
We have a notification from Verizon that the content provider has discontinued programming for ESPN Goal Line College Football Channel 829, as well as ESPN Bases Loaded College Baseball Channel 829, effective June 30th. And then we have our annual letter from Southeastern Regional School District stating the amount to be apportioned to the town of Mansfield for its operating for school year beginning July 1st, 2020 is $1,330,317.
Wait a minute. That number sounds like it's way higher than it's been.
$1,330,017.
No,
That's correct.
I'm saying what you're saying is correct, but that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's gone way higher than it's been in the past. Can we take a look at that? Kevin, can you ask Barry to give us a 5-year on that?
There's actually, it's included in an email update from Southeastern Regional to us that has, I believe, more than 5 years worth of data in it.
Okay.
Provides a whole explanation, and I can pull that up in just a moment, and I can forward that to the entire board.
Okay.
Okay. And we also have a letter from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that the Division of Capital and Asset Management and Maintenance has issued an RFP seeking to lease space in our community for the use by the Department of Early Education and Care.
Mhm.
And just to be clear, the letter wasn't just Mansfield; it was other surrounding towns, if I read it
Yeah, they
correctly.
do. That's a standard thing they do when they're procuring stuff. Okay.
Chris, quick question on that: do we do anything with that? Like, do we try to get them to locate here in Mansfield, or do we have a space? Give them the old police station.
I to my knowledge, whenever DCAM is doing this, they have a form, like a formal pre-formatted letter they send out to the local area to notify them that that's what they're doing. I don't know. I mean, we could, I guess. I don't know if we can make suggestions to where they might want to look.
I'm just saying it falls under kind of the economic development category of things.
Yep.
That was something that we don't have space available right now that's proper in town municipal facilities. However, I did forward that on to an appropriate party that may be aware of some space that may be available for them.
Yeah, so
Okay.
a private real estate person or someone. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, that's
That's
the
the end of the correspondence.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Okay, item 12, the TM report.
Excellent. Thank you. I was just starting to send the email off for you. So I will revisit that after I wrap up my report. But I did find the email with the budgetary information for Southeastern Regional. So I will get that off to you in just a couple of minutes when I wrap up. But hello and thank you. This actually is working out very, very well. So thank you for the practice sessions and getting used to our new digital world. The staff also, I just want to give the kudos out to Carrie and Nancy, MIS, Cable Access, with Jack O'Neill and Susan. Everybody's been very, very gracious in order to get where we are tonight. I really appreciate that, and I'll elaborate that in a little bit more in a few minutes. I'm working off of 2 devices, so I'm reaching out to you via my laptop. I also have my iPad here, so I'm going to be looking down for my notes as well. So if I look down, that's what I'm looking at. One of the things that we talked about as our staff, we have our regular staff meeting just for the TM's office. But then also we've been having some larger departmental meetings. And I really want to, I know we talked about this last time, but again, publicly mention the fact that our staff is communicating, working, and setting out our daily goals of what we need to get done. I could be more pleased with everyone. And the fact that MIS had a plan in place for us to be able to go through and work remotely, where phones are able to be transferred via laptops and they can actually ring right at, I could be sitting here at home and we can actually work to this degree. But even for those people who don't have that ability right now, they're checking their voicemail and emails every 20 minutes, if not more, if they're already logged on and VPN into the system. I want everyone to know, and certainly I know the select board knows, but also the people who are going to be viewing us live or when this gets replayed and rebroadcasted, the fact that we are here. So even though our buildings are closed, we're here and we are working, and that's important for you to know, the general public. So that's important for everyone to know. And that we regularly post our updates. If you haven't seen them, I mean, we're reaching out via Cable Access with the updates to the scroll. But we also have things to our website on a regular basis, and also our social media accounts to keep you abreast of anything that occurs, and of course any of the major things where I update the select board directly to on. But for the public, we're really making sure that we're doing that. And I think that we've done a really good job compared to other municipalities. And this gets into my next topic. I feel like this is my own little podcast tonight, but talking about what we're doing for Mansfield, that I know the select board is proud of what we're doing, but the fact that even though, for example, just a reminder that Monday is a holiday for Patriots Day, so we will be closed on Monday. So we won't be, even though we're always tied to our devices, we are off on Monday. However, the fact of what we're rolling into now in this new virtual world, and again, setting us apart different from other people, was the fact that as part of the governor's declaration back in, I believe it was like March 12th, that we were looking at a situation where since we've taken away the public's access, I know Frank touched upon this a little bit tonight, we've taken away the public's ability to access and see each other, and whether or not you're turning on television or whether you had the right to be able to attend any one of our publicly posted meetings via the town clerk's office, that the people had a right to participate. During COVID-19, that has been stripped away from them. So one of the things that came across in the governor's order was the fact that we needed to provide public access. So while we were going through and testing out Zoom and GoToMeeting and figure out the best platform that we wanted, and figuring out how do we deal with public hearings. And so that's not via GoToMeeting, that's via GoToWebinar. Carrie's really taken the ball and run with that and working with multiple departments, but really doing a fantastic job with that. But really, how do we link then the public aspect to that? So we ended up, we just sent out a virtual public meeting update to all of our boards and committees, and being able to explain, and I just want to make sure the board also understands the challenge of the fact that we need to live stream what we're doing. So the only place that we can do that on a regular basis, only one at a time, is doing that in 3AB. So cable access is actually in 3AB tonight. They have a laptop that's been provided, and they're logging into this meeting in order to promote this Brady Bunch view of GoToWebinar and making this in a public fashion. This is going to be the same thing that's done for every single public meeting. So there are some additional steps. The memo covers them to our boards and committees, but that we want people to log in, download, train on them so we can look professional and still providing the service to the public and being able to provide the public's access to their government and what we do. So there was a detailed memo that went out, and so we say to everyone, whether to reserve a slot for your meeting, we're providing from 3 to 4 p.m., 4:30 to 5:30, and 6 to 7, Monday through Thursday, in order to make sure that cable access can then be present and to do what we're doing. The only exemption to this is if the fact there was a financial hardship, so to say. If there were a financial hardship, the state would relax or not totally enforce this live access. We do not fall under such hardship, which is why it took us a little bit longer to be able to work through this, test it to make sure that it works the way that it's supposed to, and now rolling out the process of what we're going to be doing. So I really want to appreciate, I can't tell you how many staff meetings every day for about 10 days to get this down the way we needed to, between MIS, Barry, Nancy, Carrie, MIS, Chris George, and minutes people, everything that we had to do to get this going the right way. But we are doing this the right way, and we're making this as easy as possible and providing the public access to its meetings. So I know it's a little bit different, but I think we're going to be in this amended reality for a little while. So we're doing our best. So I ask that if it doesn't go exactly the way that it's supposed to, please remain patient with us. But I really want to applaud the group because I think they did a fantastic job in getting us to where we need to be. So thank you to them, and thank you to you, the select board, and also for the public. We're doing this on your behalf. So I really appreciate that. In addition to the things that we're doing, again, that I'm proud of, I'm hoping by at this point in time that you've been able to see our public service announcement that's online and on cable. I want to thank all of our town and school officials and staff, as well as our 2 students who participated in our public service announcement and helping us flatten the curve. You've heard when we started this off over a month ago of how important this was, and we all have a role in this. You heard that from our health agent tonight or our fire chief. It's really important that we're all in this together. I really, really like the fact we all came together to really provide a cross-section of all of our town departments in a really different type of public service announcement, and really thanking the public for their cooperation in this. And we are all in this together. So I'm hoping that you had a chance to see that. I was really glad that the way that it came out, and we are sharing that on a regular basis. And great job to everybody. It really came out very, very nice. And again, as you heard tonight, please continue the work of social distancing, proper cleanliness, and for us to do what we need to do to get through this tough time. We're going to be in this for a while until there's certainly a vaccine. So we're all in this together. Again, some of the things that we've heard, and we've been listening to the feedback, and that's happened in a myriad of ways. I won't get into the specifics of that tonight. But currently underneath our news section of the front page of our website, there is a frequently asked question, a fact document that answers many of the residents' questions. And then also when we get to the point where things change, we are changing that FAQ sheet and that document, in addition to posting those changes to the appropriate places to get out to people. So if you haven't seen that, I'm going to cover a couple of those now. One of them is the update to the bulky items and white goods pickup, and that's now available. So during this declaration of emergency, the procedures to arrange for pickup of bulky items and white goods is as follows. We ask that the people of Mansfield please call the DPW office via phone, 508-851-6415. Again, 508-851-6415, or by email to C. Collins, so CCOLLINS at mansfieldma.com. We make sure to include a good description of the items that you have. Please include your address and a contact telephone number for us. You will receive a call back from the DPW office with payment details and pickup instructions. So white goods are picked up on Wednesdays and bulky items are picked up on Thursdays. So again, call the DPW office or email Christina Collins at ccollins@mansfieldma.com. And we're able to do that remotely now with limited contact of staff work coming in to make some things work. It's an amended version, but it's important to know that we're trying to provide the town services in every way that we can. Again, for another update on town service. An update for the Mansfield Green compost area. So not the recycling area. This is for the compost area. The Mansfield Green is being opened up, of course, in response to the recent storm that we had that caused a significant amount of tree damage throughout the town. The compost area will be open from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. starting today, April 15th. And that's going to be on a Monday through Saturday schedule from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. until Saturday, April 25th. Please note, and we're asking people to know, that it's only the Route 106 entrance across from the new public safety building that will be used for residents to come in and out of the facility. And this is only for yard waste consisting of brush, leaves, and grass clippings. Due to the recent storm, for these 2 weeks only, the town will allow brush larger than 6 inches in diameter. Please, no tree stumps or building materials are allowed. So we want to make sure that people are aware of that. And again, we've been sharing that information in our appropriate areas. Steve had just made reference of this once. There was also a newspaper article. It's been on social media and again on our website. But please know that real estate taxes, personal property tax, and any excise tax that's unpaid, you have until June 1st, 2020 in order to be able to make those payments without any penalty. So that's important that we want to make sure that people also know. Okay. On to other types of non-COVID related business. Just want to be able to publicly tonight, and I know that this is many people's comments. We received words of thanks, text messages, telephone calls to MMED, our electric department, and a special thanks to all of our staff who've been out straight since Monday's storm and have been doing a fantastic job. A sincere thank you to our linemen who have been working a tremendous amount of hours to try to get residents' power back on. West Street, of those 12 telephone poles with 2 primary lines that are broken and in the street 12 in a row. There are still 19 services that are out, and our town staff certainly have been communicating with them throughout the time. They have been pulling significant hours. I'm hoping that at the time of this broadcast that they're able to go home tonight to get a full night's sleep for the first time. And it's going to be a while still till that's done, but they have been much praise and thanks to, again, the fantastic crew at MMED, led by Joe Solicito, and we're really thankful for them and all the office staff fielding all of those calls. A great and much sincere thank you to everyone. On another note, we're continuing to move forward with scheduling interviews via GoToMeeting for the week of January 27th for the Chief Assistant Assessor position. So there'll be more to follow on that. I'm still working with Community Gardens on their host community agreement, and I have a teleconference scheduled for tomorrow. There'll be more to follow on that. Barry mentioned tonight there's still remaining approximately it's not about 92,000 in the snow budget that remains today, but we do have required payments for minimum snow plowing requirements that'll probably take up another $9,000 to $10,000. So we're probably looking at about $82,000 left in the snow budget at the end of the day, which again is certainly positive for fiscal 20, in addition to the fact that we've put on the spending freeze for anything that's non-essential at this point in time to aid in any lack of revenue for fiscal 20. And then lastly, I've been working really closely, even though that Chris George and I aren't in the building, you know, many of us are still working on our projects and initiatives on the side. So I'm still working with Chris George with Penta Communications. We will be prepared in May for our May meeting, and whether that's, I believe we'll still be in this version. So Mr. Chair, I'll work with you in determining what meeting you want in May, the first meeting or the second meeting in May, to do our live presentation for the work. And be ready for the launch of our effort for Discover Mansfield and our next steps moving forward. But we're still meeting on a weekly basis. I just had my meeting yesterday with Chris and Deborah, remotely, of course, but we're still working on that. So even though we're working in this remote world, which is certainly very different from our old world, we're just pushing forward in things. It takes a little bit longer, a little bit more follow through for everybody, just because we're not all dealing and we can't reach out and touch someone, so to say. It takes a little bit longer to get things done. But the fact that I'm really proud of all the town and its staff and resources are being used most efficiently as possible in order to still continue the business that we once did when we were all together in one building. So that's what I conclude from my report for this evening. Jess, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Since questions, select board questions and comments are next. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around the room here. If they have any questions, comments, or anything that you said, they can just do it all in one shot.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Neil, you're the middle square. You want to go first? Can't hear you.
I'm having a problem with these.
Go ahead. You're good.
I'm having a problem with these headphones. They're no longer working. Yeah, I had a couple questions. Just in Kevin, in regards to DPW and what they're able to do and unable to do in the current environment. You know, for example, I know one of the things that was supposed to happen this spring is the planting of the trees at the Mansfield Green. So is that the type of project where it requires people to be too close together and it's not going to happen, or are they looking for a way to work around that? Just those are the types of things. You know, normally in the spring they do the town-wide street sweeping. Like, is that happening, or is that not going to happen? So just kind of give an update on that.
Sorry about that. So, for example, street sweeping, we've really got ahead on most of the street sweeping throughout town, just because of the mild winter itself. So we're pretty much, we don't have much more to go on that town-wide. We've really done a great job with that and getting that ahead of schedule and trying to get to our construction season. We're really in difficulty with DPW particularly. And again, this also goes out for water, the water department as well. The fact that when anybody working in teams and we're in close proximity to one another really causes an issue. We're trying something for next week as it relates to some outside resources bringing in to help us with some drainage projects that have been on the board for a while that need to be attended to. And when we get some major heavy rains like we just received the other day, causes some significant issues. So some of those backlogged issues where we don't have to be on top of one another, we're going to start to very carefully deal with. But what we're not going to entertain is full-fledged construction at this point in time. So we're watching very closely to what's going to be the guidance provided to us by the governor as it relates to what we'll call reopening. Part of that reopening is what we do and what we're considering an essential item versus a non-essential item. So we're being very careful about that. We really wanted to make sure it does not send a good message or precedent. If the governor is telling everyone who is absolutely non-essential to stay home, that we're in full-fledged construction mode and we're out there full-fledged, it does not make sense, and it's also not good and safe for our employees. So we wanted to make sure that we were following the same protocols and the same messaging. Staff are bringing their vehicles home. If there is an issue, they are required to come in, and they know that. But if at this point we're still in the non-essential mode, if you're not, we're only dealing with those things that absolutely need to be dealt with. However, next week we are slightly moving into a very limited modified version of that for some things. However, even in this non-essential mode, we do realize the fact that we did remove non-essential trash barrels. There were 83 of them that had to be emptied on a regular basis, with people who are still out and about and being public. Those areas were being abused with people using them for residential rubbish. They have been removed. But there are still trash receptacles at our public places, but ones that were having residential rubbish dumped into them, we remove those. We're not going to be coming out and sending our staff to remove residential rubbish. Regular things for people to throw away, that's fine in our public places, but those that were being abused until this is turned around, we are just leaving our essential items. So we were able to eliminate some of them so we can bring our crews in for a time to pick up the trash once a week, and making sure that it's not overflowing. That's not the message we want to send in our public places. So we have some things that we're doing. It's just not business as usual, so to say. But that is going to continue to ebb and flow as we make our way over the coming weeks. And again, watching very closely of what we'll call the limited reentry from our old world into our new world.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
So let me just follow up. So in regards to this public trash, I wasn't aware, was there an uptick in people, and why suddenly were people putting their own trash in these public barrels?
I have no idea. I from what I understand is it was happening time to time. However, we can try to understand, and this was something that we talked about in our staff meeting, was the fact that just because people are home, whether or not they have a trash receptacle, or it just seems the fact that so many people are home, maybe this is a thing for them to get out of the house, Neil, to be honest with you. I don't know. But there was a very noticeable uptick once people started staying home.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, and the other along related lines is the public bulletin, for people who are at the supermarkets. You've probably all seen the story on the news of the uptick in personal protection litter, people dropping their gloves and their wipes in the parking lots at the supermarkets. And we're seeing it in other areas around town. So I would just encourage everyone to be responsible and not litter in the first place, obviously, but especially these items, which, are a public health hazard as well. So in regards to the one question I don't think you answered was on the trees at the Mansfield Green. Is that going to happen? Because I think we bought them. So are they on site, or they just want to make sure they don't die?
There's nothing. Yeah. So those weren't on site. So when they come, we'll figure out a plan to do that. I have not talked to Mike Ahern about that, Neil. So that's something that we'll follow up, but they're not here. Okay.
Yeah, I would just say if it ends up where we miss the spring planting season, let's not put them in July and have them all die. Right. I'd rather wait till the fall. So, all right, that's all I have. Thank you very much, Kevin.
All right.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Neil. Mike. Mike.
You there? Okay.
Go ahead.
Kevin, other towns initially, stopped accepting building permits and inspections, et cetera. And some towns actually are moving towards doing inspections and taking building permits. How do you see us transitioning in so that we don't completely stop everything?
You know, and that goes to the discussion we were talking about on local receipts before, right? So one of the things that we're looking at is the next steps. So part of my earlier report, Mike, was the fact the steps that we have taken to ebb and flow, add some additional things to services to the public. There are other services that we're going to be challenging ourselves of what this is going to look like prior to us going back to an amended work schedule, or whatever that amended work schedule is going to be looked at and agreed to. In the meantime, one of the things that we're going to be looking at, we reported last time on the fact of emergency inspections or inspections of things that were already in process. Those things are already continuing to happen. So if somebody already had an inspectional services application that approved and was in the process, we are doing those types of inspections as long as the staff is not put in any way, shape, or form in any type of danger or other type of human contact. So we are doing that. So whether that's septic or the big projects that are going around town right now, we want to make sure those continue. But we are going to be trying to identify a way as we continue to move forward, how we're going to accept them into the system, because we do not have an online version of a software package for building inspection. So we would have to have some type of receipt program to make that happen. So that's going to be one of the areas that we're looking at to integrate something back into the system. So I'm going to be working with Bob Blackman on that in the department to see how we can try to come to some type of process to get things moving again. That's certainly not going to be next week, but we are looking into that.
Can't hear you, Mike.
Other towns are actually working, approving permits because they're actually in their buildings. They're
correct.
not open to the public, but they're still accepting them. So I think, you know, we've got to get moving on some kind of transition on that. And really, we got to look at something for the online permitting for the future. Another thing I thought of also is, you know, Neil was asking about what's the DPW doing? You know, now would be a perfect time that, you know, we could do some renumbering up at the Winthrop Street lot where there's no cars up there, rather than pay, you know, overtime on a weekend, you know, when there's no cars. Those numbers are starting to get very faint up there.
We'll take a look at that. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're done, Mike? Okay. Steve?
Yeah, building on some of Mike's comments, I wasn't going to bring this up at all. In fact, I wasn't going to have a single comment whatsoever, which would probably be the first time in a while. But I got a call this afternoon. It still disturbs me. It was at 2:00, and I did a little research. And it's touching on what you talked about there, Mike, a bit as well. But I got a call from a small business owner, a local business owner. And this comment that I put together is just regards the call, and it's not directed at the town manager, or the assistant town manager, or the staff. You guys are doing a wonderful job keeping the town going. But the individual stated that they have an inability, that our inability to hold simple virtual meetings over the past month is directly impacting his payroll. Now, those are his words. Simple virtual meetings is directly impacting his ability to meet payroll, because projects that he was working on or they were working on aren't moving forward. But at the same time, he said that he's not having those frustrations with other towns. To your point, Mike, permits and stuff are being pulled in other towns. So, you know, the work can't proceed, having a tough time meeting payroll, and God forbid that something that we do, and again, it's the virus's fault, it's not us, but it's our reaction to the virus' fault that matters. So I looked at area towns to check the veracity of his claim, this individual's claim. So I just looked at the calendars, the historic calendars of our neighboring towns, and, you know, I was surprised a bit, actually. Like the town of Sharon, which was one that was mentioned, they've had 26 meetings since the March 10th governor's order. 26. Using Zoom or GoToMeeting. They use GoToMeeting on the first week. The ZBA, the planning board, the community preservation committee actually met in the past month. I looked at Foxborough. They were similar to us, but their meetings are always broadcast live, and they have that daily video briefing from Bill Keegan on COVID-19. Plainville has had 20 meetings using Zoom over the past month as well, including many joint meetings of boards and committees. You know, just again, checking the veracity of his claim, because this individual deals with all these towns as well. Norton, the town of Norton, has had 22 meetings using Zoom and teleconference where residents are fully participating. They even had a charter commission meeting, which shocked me. How can you, I mean, yeah, we've all been awake for the last month. We know what's been going on, but they decided to have a charter commission meeting remotely during that time. Easton started with their first Zoom meeting on March 31st. Since then, they've had about 6, including a planning board meeting. And I don't think we're expecting a planning board meeting for another month, possibly. And then lastly, I looked at North Attleboro, which I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago. They've had 20 meetings. And they just recently changed to a town council and has a new town administrator. And so I reviewed these because of the call this afternoon and wanted to really check out the veracity of the claim. And then I went ahead and took a look at the March 10th order from the town to see, or from the governor to see how the towns are actually doing this. I mean, are the towns, they're facing the same stuff we are. You know, why are they able to do this and we're not? But like you said, Kevin, the order said timely and effective public access, quotes economic hardship as a reason not to provide the alternatives. It just flabbergasted me that other towns had 26 meetings in the past month, and we've had 5 or 6, none open to the public. And then I got to think, wait a minute, and Mike, you're actually adding to the point here as well, is we're behind on permitting. We're behind on projects, but yet Sharon's moving forward and Needham's moving forward and other towns are moving forward. We're a month behind on our proposed budget. That's not a big deal. We can make that up. We're a month behind on that master plan, as Alan brought up earlier. We're just, in general, a month behind on our economic ambitions, and our tax base can't afford to fall behind. So, you know, the call was painful, and I didn't know what to say. All I had to say was, I'm sorry, we'll try better. We'll try and fix this so you can meet your payroll and so forth. And like I said, I wasn't going to bring this up, but the call just hit me hard this afternoon. But I couldn't do anything but apologize to the individual and kind of feel embarrassed. So let's go forward and try and decide how can we get, let's say, the local economy, if you will, the permitting done, you know, the meetings and the planning board and the zoning board forward so we can start this progress and not be behind. But I got to tell you, the other towns, 26 meetings, all virtual, just surprised me. So no questions, you know, no reason for comment. I just wanted to provide that unfortunate call this afternoon. Hopefully going forward, we can correct that. I'm sure other small business owners are struggling as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to ask Kevin about that. Kevin, the planning board and the zoning board, they postponed their meetings that were scheduled on their own accord. Yes?
Yes, they
Am I
did.
right about? Okay, so I hear Steve's point. It's well taken, but what you're telling us tonight is that we're able to go forward from now on. So if we want to have a charter commission and they want to meet, we can do that. Well, you know, if we a committee that needs to meet, we can do that. I know.
Right. The point is that for the last month, Sharon's had 26 meetings. Their planning board has moved forward. Their projects have moved forward, and the people who are working on those projects can continue to do so. Like Mike said, the permitting that's required and so forth, and getting some of these things approved, so that we don't have to spend months over the summer catching up. That was the point. Not that we aren't having a planning board meeting, but they actually had the capability to do so. That's it.
Frank?
Yeah, I think I said that you had a point that was well taken. I was just, you know, to give the implication that the planning board couldn't meet, that they've postponed their own meeting. So maybe they shouldn't postpone it. I guess that's true. But to get back to what I was going to say, a couple of things. First, about the MMED, it's what I draw from that is that you know, even when we're in a situation where it's taken more than a day for some people to get their service back, people have the most positive things to say, and that's because of the reputation that's built upon service. In some other communities, the power goes out. If they get it back soon, the expectation was that they weren't going to, so people all riled up and work. So that's good work. We all appreciate it. We all mention it. That's good stuff. I get phone calls. I've gotten most of the calls about the composting. Thanks for that, Kevin. A few about, is the track open, things like that. People call me about school stuff. I refer them to the schools. I had mentioned earlier about the town's financial position and how towns in general around the country, what kind of position they're in going forward. I don't think anyone's asking questions about that now, but it's good to know that we do have reserves that have been built up over the years. Thanks because of the economy, basically. Since Steve joined the FinCom, I think it was in 2011, Steve, early 2012. We were in the
Yeah, it was
midst
the
of
year my son was born.
that's a good mnemonic. We had been the longest running economic growth period in American history. And fortunately, like many of our surrounding towns, we did the right things. We collaborated. We worked well together. Things are going to get a little tougher now. They say it's better to be lucky than good. It's better to be lucky and good. I think that's what we've been. And I think it's incumbent upon us to continue the spirit of collaboration and working together as we go forward and face these challenges. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Okay, I have a couple quick things. First, let me also just touch quickly on the inspection thing. I do think that, if we could get the inspection thing rolling, that would help in many ways. If person X is building a house and, they need a rough electrical before they can start putting the sheetrock on or whatever they do, it might help pick up several trades. So, we'd have to work that out to make sure it's safe and done properly, but not to beleaguer the same point that Steve and Mike made, but I think we need to take a look at that. So if we could kind of put that on the top, close to the top of the list, that would be great. I do want to, April has 5 Wednesdays in it. So if we stick to the normal schedule, we're not going to be meeting for 3 weeks. And I'm not saying that we should definitely, but I think we might want to think about maybe having another meeting at some point, especially with everything going on. Again, I'm only one vote, but I'd like to get everybody's input. We don't have to have it now. We can reach out. It's not violating open meeting law on meeting dates. So you might want to think about that because if we're meeting the first and third Wednesdays of May, it's not going to be for 3 weeks. So if you guys just consider that. Also, the storm, actually, there was a huge tree on the corner of Branch Street, kind of near where I live. And I was driving around and these guys came. This tree was like 100 feet tall. In 2 hours, I had the tree gone and power back. So again, I did call Joe and thanked him. Kudos to everybody. It was windy and pouring rain out and they really rocked it. And in fact, someone called me thanking me from the West Street area, who I wouldn't expect to get a compliment from, thanked me and on behalf and the electric department and DPW police, everybody for really rocking out there. So great work to everybody. And again, on this COVID stuff, I really hope people, everyone's kind of getting a little itchy at home, but let's hope we can round the home stretch pretty soon. Please stay home. If you don't have to be out, don't. The social distancing stuff is working. So please stay home, be safe with your family, come up with projects. Maybe I'll do some work around the house and we'll go from there. So with that being said,
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Neil, go ahead.
I have one question I wanted to clarify, just for all of our purposes, for Kevin. So thank you for setting up the technology we're using tonight. Seems to be working pretty well. As far as the meetings that are all the boards and committees, and you've set up the system where there's these 3 time slots, 4 days a week. So like a lot of the boards and committee meetings were not previously televised. So like, for example, I don't know, the trash and recycling subcommittee, task force, whatever we have to call it. Does that have to go through that process? And will that now be televised, broadcast similar to this?
Yes, so that's a good question, Neil, and I think that it's important to realize when the world changed and you took away the public access to either be present at a meeting or if they weren't there before,
Even though nobody came to those meetings anyway.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So because you now have the requirement to make that live, so whether it's to your comment, Neil, or to Steve's comment, I can tell you 100% because I know not every single town is doing what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And they're not all live and they're not all doing what they're supposed to do. And we're making sure that while it took us a little bit longer, we want to be in concert with the law. And then the other portion is, while we all want to get back to life is certainly back to close to normal as we can, we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way and we're also not causing any type of harm for our staff as well. So you're right, even though that, for example, whether it was the scholarship group or whether it's the trash and recycling committee, that I don't think we've ever had any one person come to them, because we took away the public's access, we now have to provide live access to them.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I wasn't quite sure on that. And the other part of that is just all these meetings, just to have relatively tight agendas, because you basically have a 1 hour slot. So
because and we have so many groups that meet, Neil, as you know, well know, that I can't fit them all in. So we wanted to try to, at least if we're going to put all this extra burden on cable, we can't have them spanning all across the place. So we're trying to keep them at least to make sure that we have 3 spots a day.
So we've got 12 hours of meetings capacity a week, essentially.
Yeah, and Neil, if the last one goes over a little bit, it's okay.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure that it's not running hours and hours and hours. We're going to put a lot of extra stress on Mansfield Cable Access for sure.
Okay, and I just want to clarify that. So thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, could I make
Go ahead,
one
Mike.
comment?
Yep.
I just wanted to thank our MMAD chairman, Mr. Neal. He did such a great job overseeing all the trees being removed. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate your hard work.
Don't mention it.
He didn't even know there was a storm.
At least he wasn't driving around in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I caught that, yes.
Steve, do you have a comment? You good?
No, I'd just like to see you doing some work at the next GOTA meeting. So when that happens, please show us. We really want to see that. That would
I'm
warm
going to
our
paint
heart.
the deck, I think.
No way.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. With that being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a second by
Second.
Mr. Steve. Roll call vote. Neil,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Yes, 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.